How's it going, guys? AnxiousCynic back again with another Mine-imator tutorial. Continuing where we left off last time, we're going to go ahead and get into a couple of the final touches of our rig, which are going to be adding some actual fingers and maybe some shoes. So let's see if we can hop right into it. First thing I'm going to do is to start our fingers, we're going to go over here and get a body part, and we're going to bring in an arm. Boop, just like so, and we're going to click create. And there we go, we've got an arm, and that seems kind of weird, but that's what we're going to go with. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is not go there. We're going to take this and parent it to Steve's arm. So the first thing we need to do is, let's start with his left arm, I guess, for now. And as you can see there, that's kind of terrible, so we definitely want to scale it down. We're going to get a feel for about how much. Let's go about 0.25. That might be about a pixel's worth. We'll see. And we want to keep it on lower half, and I think we're pretty good on the rotation point. We can't really change that unless we use a folder, so we'll see how it goes. So the first thing we want to note is which way it bends, so I'm just going to go ahead and set a bend there. And as you can see, that looks kind of weird, but there we go. Now that we've got this set up, we're going to go ahead and rotate this, and I think it's going to be, -90, and that's going to get the finger positioned the way we want it to be. And I'm just going to drag it over to the side here. We may want to put a folder on this to change the rotation point. I'm not really that unhappy with this. You can change it, to whatever you feel is more beneficial to the way you're doing your rig. But you can do that, of course. If you know anything about my tutorials, then you're well aware of the folder rotation point trick that I typically use. So we're going to go ahead and retexture this, or recolor it basically. And the way I'm going to do that is to hop over back into GIMP and get the hex value for the skin color here, and then come back into Mine-imator. So let's head over there. Alright, so here we are in GIMP, and what I want to do is, I guess I'm going to pick this color here. You can see that there's two different colors for the arm depending on which side you're looking at, but I'm just going to go with this one. So I'm going to hold the control key, and I'm going to click in here. And that made our color over here that color. And then I'm going to go over here to the HTML notation, which is basically the hex value. I'm going to highlight it and hit Control C to copy, and then head right back on over into Mine-imator. Alright, so back in Mine-imator with our arm selected, I'm going to come down here and go to color, the mix color. I'm going to highlight this by clicking in there, and I'm going to hit Control V to paste and hit OK. And then I'm going to bring up the mix value, and there we go. So again, as you can see here, this doesn't line up on this side, but it does over here. So you could go in and make a separate skin just like we did for the lips, and color the arms and retexture them in a more customized manner. If you download my 3D advanced character rig, that's what I did, and you'll see that there's like a customized texture with the fingernails and all this kind of stuff that I did. But for this example, we're just going to go with a basic color for the fingers. So one thing I've been debating on is I don't know if we want to do 4 fingers or 3 fingers. If you do 3 fingers, I think it would actually probably look a little bit better, since Minecraft isn't really that realistic, of course. But since we have this, I think it's pretty much a pixel's worth that we have here. I'm going to go with this size, and then we'll just do 4 separate fingers. So with this one done, we're going to make sure that we have it in place. This may be about 2... Not exactly because of the position of the rotation point here. So if we drag this in, that's going to put us about 1.5. So let's highlight all that, 1.5. And then I think it's going to be the same on this side, 1.5. And we're at -6. I think that's pretty good for there, but that's going to cause that to happen as well. Once again, if you customize the texture, that wouldn't be as much of a problem. But if we drag this down, we get that kind of motion there. I'm going to go with that for now, just for the sake of the tutorial. We may want to customize this later, but we'll see how that goes. So there we go. We got 1 finger. And let's go ahead and rename this. We're going to go here, and we're going to call this Figure 1 Left or something, because it's on his left arm. Alright, so then basically all we got to do is duplicate this and drag it over, and it should be pretty even. That's going to be about 0.5, and then we're going to duplicate the next one. But first, let's go ahead and do this finger too, and then duplicate, drag over. It's going to be about 1 point for each one, so that's going to be -0.5, and then rename it, and so on. Do it one more time. Let's go ahead and just rename it first, and then this should be -1.5, and Boom, there you go. You got 4 fingers and good stuff. Just like that, we can animate them all to be at different positions with the bends or with the rotation. Let's just go ahead and have that one like that and this one like this, because I don't know, he's fidgeting in a weird way. All right, so let's save that. All right, so now we need a thumb, so I'm going to go back here to the first finger. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm just going to drag it on over like this. And the thumb is kind of weird due to Mine-imator, Minecraft being the way that it is. Let's go ahead and do that. You can kind of, find weird ways to position it, but I think this is probably going to be about the best way to do it for now. So then you get this look like so. So you got all 4 fingers and thumb. And of course we want to go ahead and rename that. We're going to call this one thumb. All right, so now what we can do is we can actually consolidate all this down and call it, let's go ahead and select these like so, and then we're going to put them into a folder. We're going to call this fingers. And one of the issues you may have here is when you put something in a folder like that, we can, just have it for the organizational purposes, but if we wanted to use a folder for the rotation point, since we positioned all these, it's going to reset it, so you have to keep that in mind if you wanted to use the folder for a new rotation point to keep the fingers from doing that business right there. So for the sake of this tutorial, again, we're just going to leave it like that. And a lot of times people, when they make finger rigs, they'll do like a default position of like everything being bent to about 90 degrees. I wonder if we can, let's see, we can select all these at once and then hit 90, and there we go. So that's kind of your default positioning there. And as you can see, these don't really look that good because they're sticking out way beyond the length of Steve's hands, or his arms. I mean, this goes, really too far. So you generally would want to erase about 2 or 3 pixels of the arm and recreate that and then have that up. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of a journey here and experiment with doing that on the right arm and comparing that to the left. All right, so here we are back in GIMP, and I believe this here is the right arm on the skin. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that, and let's see what we can get here. I'm kind of concerned. I actually haven't done this one before, so I don't know if we should take 2 pixels or 3 pixels. To be safe, I think I'm going to go with just 2, and we'll see what that looks like. So I'm going to use the rectangular select tool, find there my taskbar, and I'm going to just go ahead and hit the delete key with those selected and do just like that. So while we're still in GIMP though, let's go ahead and click. I found out that you can do that before. Instead of having to deselect, you can just click somewhere and it'll make that go away. We're going to want to replace this part here. You may want to customize this texture, but we're just going to go with the defaults for the sake of the tutorial. But we want to copy this so that we can recreate it since we're removing part of the arm here. So what I'm going to do is come over here to image and crop to selection, and then we get that, and I'm going to save it by export as, and save that as our new hand file. So here we are in this save, and I'm just going to call it tutorial rig skin hand or something. So we're going to go to export just like usual and export again without changing any of that. And let's go ahead and undo our change here so that way we don't have anything messed up. So one thing I forgot to do is actually save our change here. Sorry about that. Before we go back into Mine-imator, let's go ahead and take care of that. We're just going to go ahead and export as and save this overall file. So we're going to go ahead and do this, bring that in and say short arm or something. Let's go ahead and export that and head back into Mine-imator. All right, so back in Mine-imator, I'm going to go over here into our library and go to the tutorial rig skin here, and we're going to change it to our short arm version. So here we are, and this is our file. We're going to go ahead and open that and bring it in. And fortunately, I was correct. And we have this. Of course, that is there. I forgot to remove that. So let's go ahead and get rid of that real quick, and I'll be right back. All right, guys. So I went back and deleted that. And as you can see now, we have a completely shortened arm with no hitches, hopefully. So what I'm going to do is bring in, I guess we're going to do a surface here. We're going to create it. And let's come down here. We're going to go to our surface. And it doesn't really matter. We're just going to go ahead and give it a custom rotation point. Make that 0 so that it's centered. And I'm not really sure which one's the front or the back side of the surface just yet, but for now, we're just going to worry about texturing it. So let's go into our library. We're going to go to our surface, go to texture, and I'm going to browse for that little hand texture that we exported out of GIMP. Here we go, and there's our little hand texture. So I'm going to bring that up. And as you can see, let's bring this out. We have a giant hand texture there. So let's go ahead and save our progress. And I don't really know if it's going to matter too much. Let me try turning on rendering. Make sure my settings are low for the sake of this. Yeah, okay. All right. So let's go ahead and turn on rendering and see what we get. All right. So this may be the back of it. Yeah, that's probably the back of our surface there. So we want to make sure that this side is the one facing out. And that means I'm just going to rotate this to 90 degrees. Let's go ahead and turn off rendering. And now we're going to go ahead and parent this to the right arm. If we can find it, there we go. Let's go ahead and turn off all the movements here. And we are on the lower half by default, so we're going to leave it there. And we're just going to drag this down. And I think that's going to be about -4 to line up evenly with the base there. And then we're just going to scale it down typically as 0.25. And then we should have just a short arm there. There we go. All right. So now what I'm going to do is go into the left arm, and I'm going to grab the fingers folder that I made that contains our thumb and fingers and everything else. And we're going to duplicate this. Click on that. And then now we're going to take it and parent it to the right arm, just like so. And as you can see, since it was based on this, it's not lined up properly. So 2 ways we can do this. I can actually just take the folder here and bring it up. Or I can actually move the fingers themselves. That's about 2 pixels, so you bring it up about 2. And the whole thing is reversed. That's not how we want it to be. So what I can actually do here, since I'm just using the folder for the consolidation purposes, I should be able to rotate this on the Z or X, whatever you want to call it here. Something like that. Just go 180. And that should do it. Of course, the thumb is not aligned properly, so we want to bring that over to -1.5. And I don't know if it really matters that much, but your numbers will be reversed here if you use this method. As you can see, the front finger is number 4, whereas over here it should be number 1. So that's kind of a thing, but if you're just kind of using this in the hierarchy or whatever, it shouldn't really matter that much. Or you can go through and rename them. We do have to rename these to right if we wanted to, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'll just change it to 1 and right, and I'll go ahead and do that respectively for each finger on the character here. All right, and there we go. As you can see here, we have them all named and numbered as you would expect, and it was just that easy. And if you ask me, when I look at this, I see a big improvement here with this one being a little bit shorter and this one being than that one being longer. It's up to you, whatever you feel like you want it to look like, but to me it looks pretty goofy and I don't know what you would call it, gaunted or something, with it being full length and whatnot. So I would highly recommend shortening that up. 2 pixels may be too much. It really depends on what you're trying to do. You could try to bring it down to about 1 pixel or something instead of 2 there, and making the arm look a little bit less cut off. Of course, like I said earlier, you could go with a custom texture on the arms here by just coloring them solid colors, and then get a better result with how that looks, and it'll blend a little bit better than it does here with this kind of just plain color. All right, guys, so now that we've got that sorted out, now we want to go ahead and make some 3D shoes. How about that? There's a couple of ways we could do this. We could do the custom item sheet where we would just make a shape like this and bring it in, and then we would just scale it, and it would be simple and easy. But let's just say, you should know how to do that by now, right? So let's say we just want to do it in Mine-imator itself. So I'm just going to go over here to our library and take our body cube and put in a new instance of it there, just like so. And just to start us off here, I'm going to go ahead and scale it down a ways. I think to line up everything, it'll be about 0.25 as per usual. And what we want to do is actually get the color here of the shoes. So we're going to do the same thing we did in GIMP earlier and make this cube the same color as the shoes. So here in GIMP, I'm going to go ahead and take our pencil tool by clicking on the N key or selecting it over here on the toolbar here, and I'm going to hit the control key and pick the color. I guess we'll do this one, just the lighter shade. You can do it however you want. Again, you can customize the cube colors and all that stuff like we did for the shoulders. And with our color selected now, I'm going to go over here to the color tab. I'm going to click on this and Control C to copy, and we're going to head back into Mine-imator. So back in Mine-imator, we're going to come over here to the mix color, and we're just going to paste that hex value in, just like we did for the other parts before, and we're going to bring up the mix color, and as you can see, it's lined up perfectly. So now we're going to go ahead and parent this to the, let's just start with the left leg again, and we're going to zero out these coordinates here, and we are on the lower half by default, which is what we want because it is a shoe after all. We're going to go to -6 to line that up exactly. Now what we're going to do is expand the scale options here, and we want to bring it down probably about, what, half of that on the Z here. It's going to be about 0.125. There we go. And that should be about what we want, as you can see. And then on the Y, we're going to bring it out a bit. Let's just say about 0.3. Something like that, we'll try it for now. And on the X, we may want to do about the same thing. Let's go about 0.3. And that's going to give us a little bit of the look that we want. We're going to have to finagle with it a bit probably, but we'll see what that gives us. Now what I want to do is create this back part. Now, of course, you may have a customized skin and you'll have a customized, shoe setup or something. But for now, we're going to go with this default look. So what I'm going to do here is actually duplicate our cube. Let's go up here to the legs. Let's collapse that so we can see what we're doing. Let's go ahead and rename this to shoe left, if I could type, bottom. All right, so now we're going to duplicate that and bring it up like so to figure out exactly what kind of level we need here. That might be good enough. We will see, about -0.4 or -4, whatever that is. And let's see, we only want this to be 1 pixel, so that's going to be, what is this, about 625, something like that. And of course we want to scale this in and bring it back. So we got to line this up a little bit. I could change the rotation point to make this a little bit more easy, a little bit easier on us, but we're just going to go with this for now. What is this going to be? 125, I think, probably, about like the other one. And then we can bring it out. Of course, however you want this to come out is up to you, so we can actually just go with kind of random numbers here. We may want this to line up, we may not. It's up to you, man. So as you can see there, that's not covering it up enough, so let's go ahead and expand that out a bit, and then move it in, cover that old setup up, like so. That doesn't look too bad. And of course, we want to change that color, so we're going to hop into GIMP and copy that hex value and come right back into this, or we could technically just do it ourselves and just make it whatever color we want it to dang old be. Just like that. That looks close enough to me. How about you? Let's go ahead and save our progress there. And now we can do the same thing for the other side. We can actually connect these two together. Actually, first, let's go ahead and name this one top. Just like so. Let's go ahead and save it. And I'm going to connect these two, put them in a folder, and name this one left shoe. All right, so before we copy that over, we may want to adjust this a little bit. First of all, we have our folder here, but the rotation point is up there. And we may want to animate Steve taking his shoes on or off or something like that. So let's just go ahead and correct that before we get too much further. The shoes may stick out a bit too far, so I would want to adjust that. It kind of depends on what kind of shoes you're imagining Steve wearing, of course. But for now, we're just going to worry about this rotation point. So instead of using the values up here, because if I do that, it's going to make them lose their orientation with each other, I'm just going to take them and drag them up and watch that number over here. So we basically want it to zero out, depending on where we want the rotation point to be, of course. So let's just go ahead and bring this up. I'm thinking maybe somewhere around here. Let's click on the folder. That might not be too bad of a rotation point. It kind of gives us a center, sort of a center look. This is obviously not a science. It depends on what kind of shoes you design for your character. But I'm pretty happy with that. Let's see what we got here. It's about almost that full number there. We'll just go with something like that, around there, that showing that number there, about 1.05. And then now we have to bring this down. Unfortunately, since I'm trying to keep the orientation of these, you may want to set up the folder first so that you don't have to worry about this little problem here. I can't just set this up in exact numbers, but I think we can finagle it into place pretty well here. pretty easily. Something like that. Let's go ahead and save. And of course, you can always rescale if you have any problems with that. But anyway, now we have the rotation point here. So if we wanted to rotate it or something and have Steve kind of walk out of his shoes or have to put them on or whatever, then we have this set up where we only have to mess with this one piece instead of both pieces individually. Hopefully that makes sense. I feel like I lost myself somewhere in there. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this and bring it over to the right leg. Just like so. And now I'm going to rename it, of course, because we are on the right leg. So we're going to have it on the right shoe. And there you go. There's some 3D shoes. You got some fingers and other things. It looks pretty good to go. If we can turn on some rendering and see what that looks like. The shadows are not very good because of the low render setting on our sunlight. Let's just bring that up to big. There we go. That's a little bit better. All right. So there you go. That's pretty much a complete rig. There's probably a couple of things we may want to do to touch this up. We'll see how that goes. I may do that in a future video. But for now, that's basically your full 3D character rig. There's a couple of things people have asked me about making the rig be able to smile. As you can see here, we only are able to make Steve open and close his mouth. Typically you would have blocks like just like these lips on the sides here, like rotated so that the rotation point would be right here on the side of the mouth on both sides, and then that way you could scale and it would go in on these to make his mouth more narrow and things like that, or you could rotate them and create smiles and things like that. But there are like pretty advanced ways, especially if you move into the Mine-imator community build for the way that kind of stuff is done. So I may save that for a future tutorial since it is kind of a little bit more to dive into. But hopefully you guys get the idea, and if you want to make your own rig, this tutorial series was helpful enough to get you there. So let's go ahead and put that back. That's going to be it for this tutorial, guys, and this little series. I hope it was helpful to you. I hope you learned something, at least a little bit. In any case, that's it from me. So if you like this video and you like what I'm doing, feel free to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe to become a citizen today. Share it with your friends and your family and your pets, and I will see you guys in the next video.